Hello, welcome to the world of literature. I am your host with the series Reading Shakespeare's Sonnets. In this series, we have been dealing with the sonnets of William Shakespeare. In this lecture, we will be reading sonnet number 18, that is, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? As at World of Literature, we have two lectures on each sonnet. In one lecture, we just go through the sonnet, paraphrase the sonnet, try to understand the contents of the sonnet, and in the second lecture, we have a critical analysis of the sonnet. We try to interpret the sonnet in more than one ways, if there be any. So this lecture on Shakespearean sonnets, wherein we will deal with the paraphrasing or simple analysis of sonnet number 18 by William Shakespeare, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? On your screen is the title of the sonnet, number 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? And first up, we would be dealing with the text of the poem. And after reading the text of the poem, we will analyze and explain each verse from the sonnet, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? Let's read the text. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. But the eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest, though thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long this lives, this gives life to thee. This was the text of the poem. Our sonnet number 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? Now, this sonnet is again dedicated to his friend W.H. And here Shakespeare is comparing his friend with different beautiful things or different beautiful objects of the world. And he begins this poem with a rhetoric question. And this question he is asking to his own friend, wherein he says, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And this rhetoric question, which he is asking to his friend, if he will compare him to a summer's day, and then he himself replies that he won't be comparing him to a summer's day, and he gives reasons for he doesn't think that summer is as good as his friend, as he says in the second line, thou art more lovely and more temperate. I cannot compare you with the summer because you are far better than summer itself. You are more lovely, you are lovelier than the summer, you are more temperate than the summer. And in the third line he would be giving further explanations as to why he is not comfortable at comparing his friend with summer. He says, rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Now, this summer is a season where at a particular point of time when there are darling buds, when buds are sprouting on the trees, rough winds blow at that point of time. A hailstorm does take place and they cause a lot of harm to these darling buds of May. So since there is an element of violence, there is an element of harm in summer which is not in his friend, so he doesn't find this comparison apt of comparing his friend with summer. And he further says that this summer season is not too long, it has a very short duration, as he says, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. It is there, but for a very short period of time. It doesn't have that long time period. But since Shakespeare in these sonnets would be talking about eternalizing the beauty, the youth of his friend W.H., so he doesn't find summer fit in context of the time span that it remains in a particular calendar year. So again, summer is not the perfect comparison for his friend. Next he says, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines. And furthermore, he says that summer is not temperate season. Sometimes it's too hot. Sometimes the sun, eye of heaven, which is an example of metonymy. Here he is using this phrase for sun. He says sun at times shines too hot, but his friend is too temperate. So the comparison won't be worth. Next he says, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. Not only does the sun shine too hot, but many a times it loses its shape, it loses its shine, it loses its glory. Maybe at the time when it sets or when a cloud cover goes over sun, so they are the times when its complexion is dimmed, when it loses its glory. So there is no reason for Shakespeare doesn't find any reason here to compare his friend to summer, because all these characteristics that he has been explaining about summer, which has got rough winds, which has got hot days, which doesn't have the glorious sunshine every time. So summer is not a fit comparison for his friend. Next he says, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. Now, he says the fact of the life is that every beautiful thing in the universe declines in beauty, diminishes in beauty. As time passes, as he grows in time, what happens is that the beauty shall diminish. And what reasons are there for that diminishing beauty? Shakespeare says, by chance are nature's changing course untrimmed. He says that there may be that it is by chance that these fair creatures, the fair things in the universe, they lose their fairness. It may be because of a chance, or there could be a nature's course to it. There could be a nature's pattern to it, a nature structure to it. And here we must remember that he also says in sonnet number 15, when he says that cheered and checked by the self same sky, wherein he says that it is a natural process, it's a natural pattern where the human beings or anything that grows is cheered and checked. It is allowed to grow, to attain the beauty, and then there is a check put on that growth, on that beauty, which eventually diminishes. So here Shakespeare is presenting to us a slightly confusing argument where he is not clear in his mind whether it happens by chance or if it is a natural course, that the beauty of any beautiful thing in the world is bound to decline, is bound to diminish. Next, Shakespeare says, but thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Now, Shakespeare is coming back to his own theme of these particular sonnets, wherein he is making an attempt to preserve the beauty of his friend, and he is offering various solutions for preserving his beauty. For example, there are some marriage sonnets where he says to his friend that you must marry in order to preserve your beauty. Then he has another option that it would be through his sonnets that his beauty would be preserved. And here he says that but the eternal summer shall not fade. Your youth, your beauty shall never fade. It will never cease to exist. It will never decline. It will never diminish. And further he says, nor lose the possession of that fair thou owest. That you will never lose the possession, the beauty that you have, the youth that you have. You will never lose that. Thou owest means that thou own, the beauty that you own, the youth that you own, you will never lose its possession. Further, he says, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. Now, the word brag that has been used here by William Shakespeare means to say something boastfully. Now, here, William Shakespeare is making a point that though human beings are always under the threat or under the shade of death, and death does boast of taking away the beauty, the charm, the youth, the life of a human being. But he says that even death shall not be able to do any wrong to you. Now that was one of the patterns in Elizabethan age. These poets would speak against the death. For example, if you remember this sonnet written by John Donne in his series Holy Sonnets, Death Be Not Proud. Now, a similar sort of a concept is here floated by William Shakespeare when he says that even death shall fail to take control of your beauty, or to diminish or decline or take away the beauty that you possess. And later he says, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. When you shall grow, you are a young man today. Tomorrow you will be adult, then you will be an old man, and eventually you will die. But as you grow, as you make progress in time, you go through years, you will not lose your beauty, you will not lose your youthful hue, you will not lose your charm. How? Shakespeare concludes the sonnet by saying, so long as men can breathe, our eyes can see, so long this lives and this gives life to thee. Now, how does he protect or preserve the beauty or youth of his friend? Or how does he make this argument that thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of the fair thou owest? It is through his sonnets. And he says that as long as humanity exists on the planet Earth, as long as human beings are there on the planet Earth, as long as human eyes can see, and as long as my sonnets exist, as he says, so long he leaves this, that is, as long as these sonnets live, this poetry of mine exist, this shall give life to thee. This shall eternalize your summer. This shall always keep your possession to you. This shall always cherish your beauty. This shall always keep you alive in times ahead, in times still human beings exist on the face of the earth. This was the sonnet, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? And don't forget to watch our lecture regarding the critical analysis of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. Till then, take care and keep watching the world of literature.